Hey, you wanna hear a joke? No? Why can dinosaurs clap their hands? I don't know. Because they're extinct. Get out. Please, just get out. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to do the things a little bit differently. I started with a joke because, I don't know why I started with a joke, but yeah, let's go ahead. I will review another book today, and I wanted to do it a little bit differently in the sense that I have a script. I usually write a script, but I want to do it freely. So let's see what it comes out. If it's shit, I will record it again. Yay. Okay, so you have to know that I have a tiny library in my room, and it's usually full of books, you don't say, but I have a shelf completely dedicated to my TBR list, and sometimes the books that I have there, they will stay there for months on end. For example, I have The Poppy War, or Anna O, or A Court of Wings and Ruin, which will stay there for a year probably. And the reasons why I don't read the book immediately are different, because sometimes I'm scared of reading a book because I don't know, I don't want my expectations to be disappointed, or I've bought the book but I'm not particularly interested in the subject, or I don't know, it was an impulsive purchase somehow. So that's what happened with The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I think I bought it at the beginning of my YouTube/Instagram journey, and it stayed there for a couple of months. And I mean, why did I do that? I don't know, because it's probably my favorite read of the year. I devoured The Secret History, and don't fool yourself, it's a pretty lengthy novel, and some might consider it a little bit slow-paced because it starts that you already know what happened, and it is somehow slow-paced, but it didn't bother me at all. If it were another story, it would be the case, but here the obsession and the illusion of the protagonist, who's called Richard, in getting to know this niche of classic students unravels page by page, and that's what keeps the pacing up. And this is not the usual novel in which you get to relate or at least be sympathetic with one of the characters. Not at all, because everybody is a bitch here. They're really out of touch, they don't have any real connection with the reality, because a normal person, a regular person would say, okay, this is not good. But they do their stuff and they don't have really problems with that, so yeah. Everything this group of people do is aimed at the pursuit of beauty, so from fashion to interpersonal relationships, but even sexuality, crime, everything is an aesthetic choice. For example, Richard's infatuation for one of the characters, who's called Camilla, who by the way has a twin brother who's called Charles, so we have Charles and Camilla, and like the real ones in real life, they sometimes share their genitals a la Lannister way, so yeah. Every time Richard sees Camilla, he goes on rambling on how unconventionally beautiful she is, her posture, yada yada yada, leaving his feelings at an extremely superficial level. I don't think I've read a passage throughout the novel in which they have a conversation on a deeper level about feelings, about opinions, about anything else that it's not, oh, how beautiful is Camilla, I want to fuck her, like on this level. I mean, it doesn't really say that he wants to fuck her, but yeah, that's how it stays. So I don't have to further talk about my love for this novel because this is not what the video is about. So you imagine me, I'm reading The Secret History, I'm loving it, when an Instagram contact comes to me and says, oh, you're reading The Secret History? Why don't you read this book also? I was like, yes, why not? Because I was looking for good reads not the app, but you mean. I was looking for good books, and sometimes it's really difficult to navigate through the book talk choices or Bookstagram choices or whatever. The recommendations sometimes are a little bit monotone, so I said yes, I would like to read a book like The Secret History. So I just jumped on my car, I went to the bookstore, I went to my trusted bookstore, and it was there. It was there among these kind of books that I usually enjoy. It was next to The Secret History, and I got my copy of If We Were Villains by Emil Rio. I went home, began reading it a couple of days after I ended reading Brat by Gabriel Smith, which I didn't enjoy, by the way, and oh my god.
Sorry.
The Red, please keep recommending books to me, but here goes nothing. I wasted 10 euros on a week of reading. I could have read anything else. Well, okay, I'm exaggerating. I couldn't have read, I mean, I still have on my TBR list things like Shatter Me or one of the Akotar books, so yeah. But okay, let's be fair, 2024 has been so far full of shitty books for me, and If We Were Villains doesn't exactly fall in this category. I mean, I cannot possibly compare it to Credence or Belladonna or something. These were shit. These were complete shit. So If We Were Villains is among the bland books that I've read. Mine 2024 has also been full of good books, and yeah, I mean, If We Were Villains is not one of them. I know people like it, I know people enjoy it, they find it, wow, the next Secret History. No, please no. I'll be honest in these reviews, so as usual, please take it with a grain of salt. I believe when you get inspiration material from another more famous novel like The Secret History, comparison is virtually unavoidable. Not to mention, quotes from other authors are all over the cover and the back, and sadly the one on the front cover cites The Secret History as a term of comparison, so you know, it's not that you can not think of The Secret History while reading If We Were Villains, but let's proceed by steps. If We Were Villains is set in the fictional Delaware Academy, where people can study fine arts and languages. Okay? The story focuses on the 4th year of the theater curriculum, which sees a miscellaneous group of young actors willing with the, and put in infinite quotes, accidental death of one of their peers, who's called Richard Sterling, who was found floating on the lake, alive, but then the group decided to leave him here for reasons. The reasons are explained, but are they acceptable? I don't know, you will tell me. The story is told by one of the peers, Oliver Marks, who is serving his last days in prison for the death of Richard, and is recounting the events of his 4th year at Delaware to the investigator that put him behind the bars. Before I dive into presenting the other characters, I take a moment to explain that at Delaware, the students in the theater curriculum only study Shakespeare's plays. So, already from the title, which is a quote from, I think, King Lear, I don't remember. But yeah, you won't see anything else other than Shakespeare. Now, this bears similarities with the group of students that we see in The Secret History, but although, I mean, the group there study classics, so Greek and Latin authors, maybe they focus more on Greek authors, but not just one. They might have preferences, their views might be limited to that particular world, but at least they can enjoy more than one point of view. In Rio's novel, it's just Shakespeare, there's nothing else. And it's not even Shakespeare's, I mean, sonnets or something. No, it's only theater stuff. I mean, he wasn't the only playwright in Renaissance England, but okay. But not only that, that wasn't my only problem. I had a problem with the students being framed in specific roles. They are assigned the same type of roles all over again. So we have Meredith, the beautiful, shapely, sensual, and whatever adjective comes to your mind that points to the fact that she's a sexually emancipated woman and attractive and everything. Here we have the fare of cliches. On top of that, she's also a red-headed girl. yeah. They just had to add like ancestors and the Salem trials for witchcrafts, and yeah, I mean, we had the complete painting here. Of course, she has red hair and is sexually emancipated. I think it's like the most stereotypical choice they could choose for a character like that. She'll also get her roles accordingly. Another character is Ren, which is Richard's cousin. The meek, naive, and honest girl, except when she finds her dying cousin in the water and agrees to leave him there, but okay. Who, of course, when they have to reenact King Lear, she's assigned the role of Cordelia. Richard is the asshole, so he always gets the role of the tyrant and ends up dead, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I mean, they all have their roles, and it's very difficult to see them in other roles. My problem with this choice, that is framing every character into a Shakespearean stereotype, is not the choice per se, rather that we witness it in medias res. So, like when things are already at the end of the story, so to speak. Let me explain. The story begins with our group of actors attending the 4th year at Dalachur Academy. Okay, so at this point I don't really know in which measure every character was the way they were when they began attending the academy, except for Richard, which suddenly becomes a bully, but he's the only one with this problem. I mean, let's take the most stereotypical character we have here, that is Meredith. Meredith, being the femme fatale of the group, basically leaves a trail of pheromones every time she passes by a man. She is sensual, she likes to be liked that way. I find her overall very predictable, annoyingly so, to be fair. Even her internal conflicts, being with Richard but being also with Oliver, which are maybe an attempt at giving her facets, are rather flat themselves. Now, Meredith is always given such a role. For example, for the King Lear reenactment, she plays one of the betraying daughters of the king, I think Goneril, but it also might be Regam, I don't remember. In Macbeth, she plays one of the 3 witches. You get the idea. Now, my question is, how much framing Meredith in these very roles led to creating a character out of her? Was she like that before joining the academy, or did she become like that during her years at the academy? The same goes for the other characters, because they're all like that, just with different roles. I'm just picking Meredith because she's the most evident. It's the most evident example of this phenomenon. Also, I don't see any other reason for building characters like that except an authorial one. In fact, the whole novel is set up as if it were a play. It's divided into acts and not parts or volumes, and every act has scenes and not chapters. Is it a valid choice? Of course it is. Everything is valid. Is it a choice I necessarily have to like? No. It connects with the general theater theme, but other than that, I don't know. I don't think it adds anything to the novel or any value on a deeper level. Another problem I had was the Shakespeare overload and failing to understand who the target of the novel is supposed to be. I got the book in my hands again, okay? Starting from the title, "If We Were Villains" is a quote itself from King Lear. Then page 9 and 10, one quote each, again on pages 13, 16, 17, 25, 29 to 31, 34 and 49. And this is only the first pages. The novel is 426 pages long. Okay, you may say, well, they study Shakespeare. Okay, fair enough. But here it's not only about them playing, it's also how they speak to each other. They constantly speak in quotes. It's like me and my boyfriend when we talk to each other quoting German wife swap, but we don't brag about it. We stay humble about it. I'm sorry. Now, I'm no Shakespeare scholar, okay? My knowledge is limited to what I did in school and during university. Besides, we focus more on sonnets and comedies. I thought, okay, maybe I'm not the target. Maybe it appeals more to Shakespeare enthusiasts. But even if it were the case, I mean, look at the plays they focus on. It's Julius Caesar, Macbeth, King Lear, like, you know, we're talking no obscure works. That some Goodreads reviewers pointed out, the author wanted to show her knowledge of the Shakespearean world, among other things, of course, picking these few plays doesn't really do a good service to anybody. Not to mention other banalities like this moment in which Oliver explains that Julius Caesar is a metaphor and critique against the government. Shakespeare didn't write plays just for fun. He also added multiple levels of meaning and critique to his play. I wouldn't have thought of that. Okay, maybe I'm being snob, but I thought that was pretty evident, that it didn't really need to be explained. This is high school level of knowledge, in Europe at least. It's not that unheard of, actually. I mean, if you study English and if you study a little bit of English literature, chances are you came across Shakespeare. And this is the basics. I mean, yeah. But okay, you know, I'm a person who tends to second guess herself. What if I didn't get the novel? So I googled a little bit and found the explanation of the novel on SparkNotes, which is a site in which experts from the field share their knowledge on a particular topic. The guide on SparkNotes argues that one of the main themes is acceptance of responsibility, which is also something discussed in The Secret History. In my opinion, in Tart's novel, the group of students accidentally kill a farmer while being high during an experimental bacchanal ritual. One of the two students who didn't take part in the act but knows what happened, who is called Bunny, is seen as a liability by the others, who decide to take his life and make it look like an accident. After his death, things unravel. A similar thing happens in Rio's novel. Richard the bully is wounded by one of the other students and then somehow reaches the lake where he falls. When his peers find him, they decide after some discussion to let him die in the lake. They basically fail to rescue on purpose. After that, things unravel. So, both groups have problems dealing with this choice. The group in The Secret History and the group in If We Were Villains experience the same symptoms, going into a hysteria which leads to the inevitable. But they're very different in the function that these two situations have in their respective roles. In Tart's novel, the students go crazy not because they feel some sort of guilt towards their friend or they realize that what they did was wrong, but rather they are afraid to get caught. There's no acting in this, they just don't realize that what they did is not justifiable. Or another reason could be that they are afraid that their pursuit of beauty can be damaged by an apprehension by the police. I don't know. There's no acting in this, they just do not realize that what they did is not justifiable. Throughout the novel, your morals lead you to think that they're on the way to redeem themselves, but then the disillusion hits you like it hits the protagonist and narrator. In Rio's novel, the protagonists experience actual guilt. At first, they all agree that Richard should be left in the water because he's a mean pain in the ass, which again is not justifiable. Richard was indeed a bully, but this doesn't warrant leaving him for dead. It's the right action. I've been bullied in school, but I wouldn't think that my bully would deserve death. Maybe just like a week of flu or something, I'm sorry. But yeah, the SparkNote argues that there is a contrast between the acting, which reigns in the novel, and the non-acting and failing to save Richard, but I argue that this is a semantic thing and not a real one. But okay, I mean, I'm not the expert. It's just my opinion. This is a semantic thing of acting actor and acting agent. This is actually my field. I'm a linguist, I know. I mean, I get what they mean by saying that there is this acting and non-acting thing, but the acting is acting as in actor, and the non-acting is non-acting as in non-agent, so not doing something. Whereas the first acting is reciting something, playing. So I don't know, I don't think it has much to do with what happens. I didn't see the disillusion that is instead so strong in The Secret History. Maybe that wasn't the purpose of the novel at all. Even the ultimate sacrifice of the sidekick, Oliver, this is the role he's framed in, who takes the blame for what happened, saving his peers, and the hero, the person who wounded Richard from prison, feels like another consequence of the role in which, as I said, Oliver is permanently framed. Or maybe he wanted to be sacrificed to save his loved one, James. In a gay subplot, I don't really know where to place because it was wasn't explained. I didn't get it. Oliver is torn between Meredith and James, and at the same time James is in love with Bran. Of course he is. So Oliver feels jealous, but at the same time he can't give up on Meredith. At the end he goes to live with her. It's like Giovanni's room, but ordered on wish. And mind you, I found Giovanni's room to facilitate my sleep a lot. I found that book boring. I don't know why. It's valid, everything is valid in that book, but really helped me sleep better and fall asleep a lot faster. Other than that, I have not much to add, except that I found the prose a little bit tacky at times, you know, the kind you also find in romantic novels. Pursed his lips, he wet his lips, and all that shit. Yeah, I don't like that kind of prose. I have to say I don't really like it. So this was my opinion on If We Were Villains. I think the author set the bar a little too high for this being her debut novel. On one hand, we have the comparison with Shakespeare, from whom the author takes a lot of inspiration, that goes without saying, but fails to repeat his greatness. On the other hand, we have The Secret History, itself a debut novel, in which beauty, crime and disillusion are entangled together, from which Rio also took inspiration for the setting and the group of characters, but failed to infuse them with the morbid charm that the originals have. Again, remember, this is just my opinion. I'd be happy to hear yours. I didn't like this novel very much, but it's highly regarded by many, so I'm obviously in the minority here. Please subscribe to my channel, even if I don't post that often. I really appreciate it. Also, go check my Instagram account at the Regretful Penguin, where I post more often. Thank you so much for your time spent with me today. Be safe and take care of yourself. Ciao!